Welcome back, Facebook friends. Yes, I'm still here at the Global Media Summit, as you can tell by the gorgeous Gaylord Hotel behind me. And I have a brand new friend here with me, somebody that should have been with us at March 25th at the Waging War for Families Transforming Grace event. So Dr. Michelle Bankston and Julie Blair and Johnny Kane, I want you all to meet Paula Mosher Wallace. So if you're not connected with her on Facebook yet, make sure you do that. You'll notice that she's not tagged on my post because we just met like 8 seconds ago. But Paula, you do a very similar work to what Karen and I do with Transforming Grace. So tell us a little bit about how you got called into this work.
So I was broken. Abuse started in my life when I was 2 years old, and it became a cycle of abuse with all different kinds of messes from...
Now, I don't want to get too technical, and I don't want to out you, so I'll allow you to answer this or not, but are we talking about physical abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse?
Yes.
Okay, all of the above.
And then throw in spiritual abuse and emotional abuse and verbal abuse, and then we have a good package.
Dr. Julie, you guys should talk. Okay.
So because that's the story of my life, and because as God healed me, I wanted to help other people. So I thought, what would have helped me the most when I was the most broken? And what I wished I'd had was the knowledge I wasn't the only one. And in Revelations, it talks about overcoming Satan by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimonies.
And isn't that powerful conjunction?
Very.
Because there are so many people who say, but the blood of the Lamb has taken care of it all. Well, it has, but as long as you remain silent, you haven't confessed the power of that blood. You haven't confessed that sin has taken over your life. You haven't confessed that healing is coming.
Right. So in my case, it was a matter of actually taking the testimonies, and not just mine, but actually finding girls and women who had all these stories of brokenness and actually storytelling their testimonies in a way that I could protect them, because their identity is not then being out there where they could run into problems. So we storytell them through a book called Bloom in the Dark, and last year we donated 6,000 copies to women in prisons and shelters and halfway houses and recovery programs and all different types of ministries where we are giving hope by saying you're not alone. This is my story. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to share what God did for me. I'm going to share how I found healing and redemption. Right. So when you do that, it empowers people to realize they're not alone, they're not crazy, it's not their fault, and there is hope for actual lasting healing.
You know, one of the things that I find so fascinating, people talk about truth, and they separate truth from fact.
Right.
And the challenge with it is, it may be a fact that I experienced this. It may be a fact that I perceived that I experienced this. It may be a fact that I imagined that I experienced this. But truth is something altogether different.
Well, there's that song about the voice of truth. It tells me a different story.
Yes.
And so the problem is the lie that says because something was done to me, that I'm now broken, I'm now useless, I'm not loved, and God doesn't care.
So we allow that pain to change our identity.
Yes.
We allow that pain to strip us away and change our relationship with God.
Yes.
We allow that pain to remove us from the presence that heals us.
Right. So what we talk about is becoming an ex-victim. It means I've got to own that I was one. It's hard to heal from something
bad happened to me.
You can't heal from something that you don't admit to or that never happened.
Right.
So when I own the fact that it did happen, but I ask God to step into that in healing, I go get help, counseling, recovery from addictions, whatever the outcomes are, and I actually do something about it. And God comes into my life and brings that healing in, and then I say, you know what? He's done for me. I'm not there anymore. My brokenness is not my identity anymore, but that's not enough. He didn't just heal me for me. He healed me so I can reach out to you. So I can reach out to you so that you know that there's healing available. You know that God will come in and heal and touch and restore everything that's been broken. So that's what we share.
It's amazing. The verse doesn't stop when he says, I came that they may have life.
No, life more abundantly.
More abundantly, that it would be larger than it was, that it would be grander than it was, that it would be greater than it was. I find sometimes that the pain in our life is like trying to stuff a Mylar balloon in a shoebox. It doesn't really fit in there. It doesn't really belong in there, but we feel like if we just squash it enough, if we hold it down and we put enough duct tape on it, that it won't be visible to everybody else.
Right.
And then when the duct tape gives way, and usually it's not even duct tape, it's like Scotch tape or the postage stamp, so the S&H green stamp, you try to stick it on there in every way you can, and then poof, it pops out, and you're looking at it, you're going, but I got rid of that.
Right.
I suppressed that. I pushed it down far enough. It's not a part of my life anymore.
Right.
But it is.
But it is, and it's kind of like cancer. Pretending you don't have it doesn't stop it from killing you.
Right.
There are things you have to admit to and do something about and ask God to come in and heal, or it can kill you. It can give you psychosomatic diseases that break down your body because you're internalizing that stress.
Real ones, according to Dr. Caroline Leaf.
Yes.
The stress comes in and
it
causes
does, and I had those.
What is it? Arterial sclerosis.
Yes.
Is one of those things. The hardening of the veins in the heart, and it causes your heart to stop. And ulcers and irritable bowel syndrome and Crohn's disease.
Thyroid issues and all of the mental, depressive, anxiety issues. We can go on and on about the damage that can cause by trying to internalize, live in denial, hide from the brokenness.
Yeah.
But when we own it and we go to Jesus and say, I need help. You said you died so that I could get healed. Well, I want this healing. I want you to come into that area of brokenness and cover it. And I need your love in that area of brokenness. And sometimes it might be traumatic enough that I don't realize how much long-term damage I have. I might need help. I might need a Christian counselor. I might need intervention of some sort. I might need to get more help than I'm capable of because that brokenness might have messed me up long enough that I need help. And it's not just a quick, easy fix. If it took me years and years of brokenness, it might take years of processing and healing.
That it happens in an
and
instant.
he has in my life. He's done both.
Yeah.
I
think one of the other challenges too is that we sometimes equate confession of sin with assuming someone else's blame.
Yeah.
In my book, The 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior, in the steps, identify and then confess. And a lot of people are okay with identify, okay, I did something wrong. But to confess that, in the same way that Isaiah said, I am a man of unclean lips. I have to look at my sin and realize it's scarlet. And he'll wash it as white as snow, but realizing that it's scarlet, calling it what God calls it. And it may not be that a 2-year-old who was sexually assaulted had guilt in that.
No.
Other than to say, I'm a human born with sin.
Right.
And even in my relationship with other human beings, my actions may have been no sin, but I am a sinful creature from the beginning.
Absolutely.
And I've got to be redeemed and restored and set right with God, regardless of what anybody else did. And I think that's hard sometimes for a victim, because a victim says, well, but I didn't do anything wrong.
Well, actually, we usually say it's all my fault. Especially if we were a young child when the damage started. It's always all my fault.
I was 9 when I was sexually assaulted.
Was it your fault? At any point did you believe somehow or another you caused it?
Or I always looked at it and said I probably could have stopped it, or at least I could have stopped doing it in the future.
Right, but the fact is you probably couldn't have. You probably couldn't have.
Looking back now, I know that.
Yeah. So a piece of it in communicating with other people
that's why we
is
call it an addiction, because you're a slave and it owns you.
It causes severe damage, and a piece of it is, okay, so the damage happened and I didn't know how to handle it well. I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know how to find help in healing. I didn't know how to stop the progressive cycles of damage. So when I go to Jesus about it all, it's putting it all out on the table. The part that's my fault, the part that's not my fault, the part where it wasn't fair, it wasn't justified, it was just blatant, horrifying sin that was done to me. But God can heal and restore and forgive all of it. It doesn't matter which part's mine or which part's whoever hurt me. The fact is that Jesus says that his blood covers all of it.
So what kind of reaction do you see happening for people who are getting their hands on the book while they're in prison or they're in recovery programs?
A variety of things. In prison, it's like, oh, you mean these bad things can happen to church women too? So if it can happen to them, then I'm not so bad that it happened to me. And if they can find healing, then oh my goodness, maybe I can find healing too.
And even if that doesn't mean freedom from prison.
No. It may
it
not
means
at all.
Freedom in heart and mind and soul and spirit.
Because prison, addictions, all these things are symptoms. Right. They're what happened after the brokenness. You're out there as a prostitute. It's because you have no respect for who you are and no boundaries. If you get pulled into sex trafficking, in a lot of cases, there was already abuse, abandonment, brokenness that set you up for that kind of thing. You're in an abusive marriage. You usually have a backstory that led to you disrespecting yourself and being a victim before you got into that abusive situation.
Or possibly even subconsciously being attracted to that kind of a relationship.
Oh, because that's what's normal. You've established that's normal through your home life, through other things that have happened to you. And so understanding that those are the different components that play a role in how and why and what, and we get into that, and then saying, okay, but what's the core issue? These are all symptoms.
Right.
You can put me through recovery on a lot of things, and if I'm still broken in how I see myself and how I see God, that may just be a Band-Aid, a patch, or a control thing, and something knocks me off my feet with a new damage, symptom, whatever, and I fall off the wagon, and now I've got this whole big mess again.
And I think that's a large problem in the church today, because we have so many people who work really hard for behavioral modification.
Right,
rather than
and that is not
spiritual
healing.
transformation.
Behavioral modification
you look
is
right,
not
but
healing.
you're not right.
No, you're just a dry alcoholic.
Yeah. So are you familiar with Bob Hamp and his ministry, Think Differently, Live Differently?
No.
You should get in touch with him. He's here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He works a lot with Polly. It used to be Polly, right now it's Polly Hamp. They're married. And she wrote the book Cherished. And it was about her life coming out of being a prostitute and being on the dance floor. And she talks about how the enemy used all that against her, and then God turned it around and began to use it for ministry. And
Absolutely.
she has ministered to a lot of people that way. But Bob talks a lot about you've got to completely change the way you think.
You do, and that's where it talks about your mind being renewed.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we stop at stopping the abuse, getting out of the abusive situation, stopping the addiction or whatever it is, without them progressing to how do I get that life and that abundant life. And that is renewing of your mind. That's focusing on whatsoever things are good, honest, pure, just, virtue, praise. Think on these
you can do all
things.
things through Christ who strengthens you.
Yes. And you keep having to go through and saturate your heart and mind with God's word, and surround yourself with people that are going to encourage and lift you up and strengthen and support you through this process.
Right.
And get the help you need to find out where your thinking is warped by the damage you've had, where you're not seeing things clearly, where your processing and your relating to things isn't healthy. It's taken me 10 years from when God just stepped into the middle of the worst for me and healed physically, emotionally, spiritually. And then God started saying, what I did for you, I want you to help and give hope to others.
You know, Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, he says, I don't consider anybody an expert until after 10,000 hours. And it's amazing how many people are still living too close to the edge of their tragedy, sleeping too close to the edge of the bed that they just climbed into, and wondering, why can't I find a way to lead others to ministry? I have people approach me all the time. They're like, coach me through writing the speech that sells. Get me to, so that my book is a bestseller and I can get on all the platforms. And I'm like, well, how long have you been on the recovered side of the problem? And they're like, oh, it's been 18 months now. I'm good. I'm like, no, you're bait.
Right.
You're bait. Right now, Satan's looking for an opportunity in your ego to bring you down again.
Yes.
And it's probably going to cost somebody else their faith when that happens, because they're going to put their trust in you as a new believer rather than in the God who saved you.
Right.
And that's a challenge. Paula, I appreciate your time today.
I do too.
How can people reach you?
If you go to our website, www.bloominthedark.org, you can actually download a free copy of our book.
Very nice.
And it's on the homepage, and you can just download it for free and get 30 true stories of brokenness and redemption, and how Jesus stepped into our lives and brought healing and hope and a whole new restoration of
I'll
life.
have to connect with Karen so you can get copies of the 5 battle positions of a happy wife.
Absolutely.
And maybe she can share her story with you as well.
That would be so awesome. Thank
Again,
you so
thanks
much.
again, Paula.
Really appreciate it.
Joni, are you ready for me over there?